Welcome to Portsmouth This Week. I'm Jeff Richard, and I'll host this program for you. This is the 13th of September in the year 2013. A very interesting subject for today's programming. We're going to talk taxes. Everybody likes to talk about taxes. And with me to share his insights is our town's tax assessor / collector, Matthew Helfand. And can I call you Matt?
You certainly can.
Very good. Well, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
You're relatively new to Portsmouth, so perhaps you could share with everyone a little bit about yourself and how you came to come to Portsmouth.
Okay. I have a BA in economics from Emory University, a master's in education from Ohio State. I did some college football coaching for a number of years, and then 1994 I started working in the appraisal field. I spent 9 years doing property appraisals and inspections in the insurance industry, and then I went to a mass appraisal firm where I was doing revals for a few years, and after that I became the assessor in Central Falls, and from there I came to Portsmouth about 10 months ago.
How long did you spend in Central Falls?
A little less than 4 years.
Central Falls is very notorious for many, many things. So
it was always interesting.
Right in the mix of it all, trying to make a budget work. And
I was, in my time there were 9 leadership teams.
Wow. That
we went through.
I see.
So it was always interesting.
You must have been doing a fabulous job because you stayed through all 9 of them, huh?
I can be stubborn.
Oh,
so.
Understood. Married?
Yep.
Very good. And where's your home, actually?
I live in Cranston.
Okay. That's a drive.
Fortunately, I'm going against the traffic, so it hasn't been too bad.
Does the town give you a transponder to help the problem?
No, that was my own
That's not a
pickup.
Interesting thing. Well, very good. So welcome to Portsmouth. Our process of determining taxes hits not only our personal residences, it deals with our commercial property, and it deals with our automobiles, our tangible property. And you don't personally go out and say, okay, that house is worth $250,000. Who helps you with that kind of process?
The valuations are generated by, well, it's been done by vision appraisal, and it gets done every 3 years. It's state mandated that cities and towns perform a property evaluation, and they go out, they take properties that have sold within a certain time frame, and they take the values that these sold properties and they create schedules and tables which help them determine the values of the properties that haven't sold. And it's a difficult process.
That interval, that 3-year interval, is a statistical analysis somewhat.
Right.
But the state mandates is it a 10-year cycle?
It's the 9th year that cities and towns are required to do a full reval, where they physically go out and they measure every property and they gain interior access to as many as they can.
So, and we have to let them in?
It's recommended that you would let them in.
Recommended?
Yes.
That sounds like a legal term.
Well,
in other words, if you don't happen to be home and they come back 3 times, and they're not going to get inside your home.
Right, and they'll end up estimating.
Okay.
And if there are issues, you're always more than welcome to appeal, but part of the appeal process is you'd have to let me in to inspect and verify the information is correct.
So how do we choose the vision appraisal company?
It's basically bid and procurement. For the example, this year before the statistical update, I contacted every licensed reval company in the state.
And how many are there?
There are approximately 6.
Okay.
And I let them know that there'll be an ad with an RFP in the Newport Daily News on the date, or they can check the website, and then there's a deadline where the bids are opened.
Yeah, Vision Appraisal is perhaps the largest of all these
They companies. Are the biggest, and they were the low bidder for this cycle, which is a major factor.
I noticed when I went to their website and looked for data, they had all sorts of information with regard to our annual tax rates and the assessment process, as well as your website, which is very effective.
Right.
So vision appraisal, they deal with 19 or 20 other cities and towns in Rhode Island, so they're apparently very familiar with Rhode Island.
Yes, and that was one of the advantages for me. I was coming in here new, and they've been doing the values here since 1998,
Right.
so they're much more familiar with neighborhood delineations, you know, the quality of the water views and the waterfront, and it gives me a little bit more peace of mind that I know the
So they're in the process right now, because we're in the statistical
That is correct.
reevaluation. And they have to have it all done by the end of the year, so that we see by February.
February or March, hopefully,
We'll get a letter.
You'll get a letter, an impact notice stating the proposed new value.
Okay.
Once you get that value, if you disagree with it, you can set up an informal hearing with the company, present your case. They'll make a decision. If you're still not satisfied with that, then you're more than welcome to appeal during the regular
And those
appeal
company
period.
reps are actually in the town hall and the
They
council
generally have the hearings in
council
the
chambers right
council
there.
chambers.
And
yes.
if for some reason you do not get satisfied with that process, isn't there a town appeals board that you
Yeah, well,
go to?
the process works informal hearing, then you can apply, fill out an application for an appeal. I'll take a look at it. I'll personally go out, I measure the property, inspect it, do an analysis. If you're not happy with my decision, you have 30 days. You can ask for it to be forwarded to the Board of Appeals, which are local taxpayers. They'll render a decision. If you're not satisfied with that, you can also take it to Superior Court.
for our judicial district, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I did find the application for abatement of property tax on the website. So if anybody wanted to see what's there, it seems like a pretty straightforward process. Chatting with a neighbor yesterday, he said vision appraisal people had made a decision that he didn't agree with, so he went through the process and they immediately said, oh yes, you're absolutely right, and adjusted accordingly. Now the appraisals have yet to affect the tax rate. The appraisals are simply what the market, right,
Correct.
will bear. So in order to come up with a budget, we have to decide on how much we need to spend, and now you're going to tell us by February, roughly, how much property tax, what the value of all structures are, commercial and residential.
Correct.
Right? And that is going to be a number. From that, we then have to determine what our
The way the
tax rate is?
process, yes.
Yeah.
It's the levy, which is the amount of money that we need to raise through taxes for the budget. It's not the same number as the budget.
Right.
Like currently, I believe it's approximately 80% of the budget is paid through the levy.
property. Yeah.
So once we determine what the levy amount is, it's a mathematical exercise, but what you do is you take the net assessed value, which is the value of all the property in town, less exemptions, and that gets divided into the dollar amount you need for the levy. And for example, this year we had a $48 million budget. We had a net assessed value of approximately $172 million. You divide the 48 million by the 172 million and you get a rate per $1,000 of value.
What do you estimate the net assessed value is going to be after this current effort?
Initially, the analysis they did was from May of 2012 through May of 2013, and they were showing approximately a 5% drop in values.
Okay.
Anecdotally, since then, we're seeing sales higher than the prior assessed values. So what the final impact is, you're not sure.
There seems to be a trend in the housing.
The important thing to remember, though, is that's overall, that's everything.
That's commercial included.
Yeah, it gets very complicated because you go into the details, like the drop in value. You could have a larger drop in the real expensive homes which aren't selling, whereas the entry-level homes are actually appreciating because with the economy maybe more people can afford to get into it. And then you've also got the houses in the middle, and you know, how are they doing? So there are a number of factors that go into it.
How's our commercial property doing? As I recall some EDC presentations, we were running about a 10%
Commercial
ratio.
property this past year comprised 10.8% of the levy. Motor vehicles contributed about 4% to the levy, so you're looking at about 85% of that levy comes from the residential property owner.
Very good. The commercial side of the equation, has there been any change? Are we attracting businesses or losing businesses?
Well, with just starting here, I don't have
well,
too much historical background on that. It seems to be stable. You know, down in the Melville area, it seems to be relatively busy still.
Yeah, well, we don't have any sewer systems here, so you know, that
that's
makes
an
it
issue.
awfully difficult
That is an
to
issue.
build big factories. Well, in your position, you are both the assessor and also the collector of taxes, and I understand that is not an absolute normal way of doing business. Is that somewhat unique to us?
It's relatively unique. The only towns and cities in the state that have that it's Bristol, it's Portsmouth, Middletown just went to it, and then West Greenwich. Warwick did on an interim basis, but that'll be changing.
If so much is dependent on a company like Vision Appraisal for the assessing side of it, then the other side is almost the legal bookkeeping, you know, how to collect and what to do if you can't side of it.
Yeah.
So how much of your day is spent doing that kind of work?
Well, I have a very good staff.
Yeah.
So
let's just talk about your day in general. Now, you got here and you said, okay, staff. I have some staff, 3 or 4, not large.
Yeah, we're actually down a person through retirement. So the assessor clerk has been kind of working real hard to make up for that. Another factor is my coming here within the past year or so. They've lost about 60 years worth of experience in the department due to retirement and that type of thing. So I try. I probably spend a little more time on the assessment side just because we're clerk short on that side, and to ease her load a little bit. But and you got reports at the end of the month, so there'll be days I'm just doing the collecting side.
Lots of people use the office for a variety of service interests. Every time I've been in there, it's been busy. Somebody's always coming in for records. You keep most of our records on flat paper?
Well, there's duplication in that. We try, and historically we have the paper copies, but we also do have on the computer, and that's one of the things I'm working on is updating the website, making it more customer friendly. But the property record information is available online as well as coming to the office.
Are we ever going to get rid of the paper side of that world?
Probably not. Hopefully we can
it's hard to
combine and everything, but you know, my prior job, we had a server go down, and I lost 2 years worth of data that wasn't able to be retrieved. So on a personal level, I'm happy having a backup and physical
well, those
backup.
land records are just monumental in their
right, and it's a physical issue, like the maps. You just can't physically get those onto a computer disk and have them work.
Interesting. The exemptions that you mentioned, I pulled off one of my tax bills at my house, and on the back of the Portsmouth tax bill is an entire list of exemptions. Are these exemptions kind of normal for you? I mean, you've been at this business now for a while.
Yeah.
Are these the normal exemptions?
They're very typical. I would say Portsmouth has, more so than other communities, the poverty and infirmity and the senior variable, which are income-based exemptions, you know, from where I've seen, very generous and not available in a lot of communities.
Well, I've got, personally, I'm over 65 and a veteran, so I've got 2 exemptions. And the senior citizen one was if you're age 65 and over, and you've been living here for 1 year of residency.
Resident, 1 year.
And you got a break. But at $15,800
That translates into about $230 off your bill.
off my bill, yeah. Very good. So are these exemptions set in a cost of living index mode, or are they, I went back to one way back in, what was it, '09, and they looked to be about exactly the same.
Well, some of the exemptions are
Senior was actually higher.
but the difference is it gets adjusted every time there's a reval. So the amount might be higher, but the dollar is generally...
Dollar value is, okay, that's
It's
a very
actually
important
state
point.
mandated that when you do a reval, the exemption dollar amount can't be lower because of the change in the tax rate and the values.
I did not know that.
So if the values
good.
do go down, the exemption amounts will go up to balance out, so you'll be getting approximately the same dollar amount of credit.
Very good. The future of tax assessing, the way we buy and sell our properties, and the way we compute, and there will always be the need for a vision appraisal company. And you mentioned earlier that in the RFP, vision appraisal got that contract, and it's basically for this reevaluation period.
Correct.
So at the end of February, that part of their existence is over, right?
As part of the contract, they'll handle appeals. They'll testify if there's a court case and things like that.
Is there any continuing cost to using outside assistance with the assessing? An annual fee that they may?
Well, there is for computer support. They using their computer software as far as admin, which is the billing, collection, and the website. Those are all annual costs.
So how do you get information to them from your office so that they can keep those things updated?
It's the magic of computers. You just you download a file and you send it off to them, and within hours they'll have it updated.
So that town's the database, which tells everyone in town about everybody else's property, is continuously updated. I mean,
it is
virtually continuous.
Now this is a unique situation. While we're doing the reval, the information on the website has been locked to before they started, because right now they're testing, and there are these projected values that we don't want anyone to, because it hasn't been determined.
Right, that makes sense.
So everything is basically locked. So if you do have something, if you think there's more recent information, please call and we'll be able to give you the updated information.
The that data file, how would somebody who goes to the data file and says, okay, this house was worth so much, it was bought here, it was sold there, and we're waiting, I guess, for the evaluations to come. How do you, maybe you can't, compare that structure based on square footage or street address against all the other comparable homes? In other words, it's the issue of, I'm going to sell my house. So you have to call 3 realtors, they all come and they do a comparison against all the other sales, hopefully. The same thing that Vision Appraisal is really doing right now, right?
Yes.
But we can't get at that ourselves, right?
No, you can actually, we have books right on the counter of all the properties that have sold every year within the town. And the way to go about it is, location is a major factor. So you'd want to compare neighborhoods similar, and then from there you'd go to size and style, and then there are all these mitigating factors, like if you do have a water view, if you're waterfront, obviously. If you're on a corner as opposed to the end of a dead-end street, and there are a lot of adjustments that need to be made.
I recall there was a little consternation the last time we had a major reevaluation, and people who were on the water thought that perhaps they were being disproportionately affected because their actual out-of-pocket costs went up substantially based on water.
Yeah. And
how does that work?
Well, a lot of what does happen is like when values change, like the prior assessed values, I believe they went down a certain percent.
They did.
Waterfront property tends to hold its value or increase in value, and it's just it's a separate animal, and it's very distinct. And when the values are calculated, it is based on sales. And then if there aren't enough sales of vacant lots and that type of thing, they do what's called a residual method, which they take the properties that have sold, and once the tables are set for the building values, they take all those sales, the sale price, they subtract out what the building value is, and then the residual is what gets assigned to the land value. So that helps them when there aren't many vacant land sales.
As expressed to me by a couple of people, the jolt of that reassessment, and then all of a sudden, you know, where the rest of us were only having maybe a 2 or 3% increase in our taxes, other people were having 10, 12, and 15% increases in their taxes in 1 year. And we had no ordinance solution to that. I mean, there's no law that says that you can't do those things.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's an ad valorem tax, which means based on value, and that's why they do the revals, so the distribution is fair and equitable.
In your experience, and you've got a lot of it, the senior exemptions, the Proposition 2, whatever they are, in California there's, and maybe there's even in Florida, a couple of my friends said that when you get to a certain age and you've lived in a house long enough, they can't up your taxes. What is that all about?
Well, that's a legislative program.
That's
the homestead in Florida.
Well, how does that actually work? And why would it not be possible to do something like that here?
I'm not sure why it couldn't work. I don't know if there's the political will to do it. You know.
Well, we're moaning and groaning about the fact that so many of us seem to want to live for 180 plus 1 day in a state that has a lot less taxes associated with it. But we're losing older people, losing a lot of experience, and of course all the money that they would be spending here is being spent elsewhere. But so how does the homestead actually work when it is in place, like in Florida?
I'm not exactly sure, but I believe when you buy your property, basically it gets fixed for as long as you
live in it.
Yeah, you know, I assume there might be some percentage increases and decreases.
But that would certainly suggest that people would be willing to stay where they are.
Yeah, and it all comes down to revenue sources and streams.
Sure.
Florida has probably more industry. They get probably a lot more from tourism, and their expenses might not be quite the same as
it is expensive living in New England, no doubt about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just get through one winter and you say, that heating bill is really takes a real bite out of your system. So. Well, we've got a few more minutes to go here. There's probably something in the tax assessing world that we haven't talked about yet. What is that going to be?
Well, the future, it's contingent upon the General Assembly and legislation changes. They've been looking at possibly changing the way your motor vehicles are valued.
I remember years ago there was actually a promise that we would get rid of the motor vehicle tax.
Yep. And
didn't happen, did it?
It did not. A few years ago, the state just basically was short of money, and they eliminated the supposed elimination motor vehicle phase-out.
Yeah.
So they went from reimbursing cities and towns the first $6,000 of value on a vehicle to $500 of value. Now Portsmouth is right in the middle. They've put in $2,500, so the exemption, everyone's first $3,000 of value on a vehicle is exempt. Portsmouth also only taxes at 70% of the value, so That's unusual in the state. There are a
What
number
is
of communities.
It's 100%?
A lot of communities, it's 100% of assessed value, and there are a number of communities that just give $500, $1,000 exemption on it. And the issue with the motor vehicles is the state, there's no way to appraise millions of vehicles, so they take the clean, it's the nadir, clean retail value, which is the highest value.
Right.
And there's no consideration for condition, mileage, or market value.
I always thought that if you stuck big taxes on automobiles, then people would tend to be running around with junk, and it'd be unhealthy on the highways, as opposed to somebody who wanted to spend a little bit more money, but then they have to factor in the taxes on that.
Right, and that doesn't even include the sales tax when you buy the new vehicle.
Oh yes,
which is
7% of life.
Yeah.
Is Massachusetts?
Theirs is different. What they do is they'll start out with the manufacturer's suggested retail price, and then it gets deducted like 25% the first year to 40% the second, and then it basically goes down. The state has one tax rate for motor vehicles. It's not individual.
Like us.
Yeah. And
in
my opinion, it seems it's a simpler system, and it's more
stable,
understandable.
Yeah, more stable system. Well, with the minute or two we have left here, how easy is it to get a hold of you? If a citizen wakes up one day and says, "I need to talk to Matt."
Well, you can call at any time. I'm generally there by 20 of 8 in the morning. And
20 of 8. I thought town hall opened up at 8:30.
If you'll find when
you're
you have fewer I'm not the first one.
Oh, so you don't have the key.
I do have a key,
Okay,
but I'm not the first
there
one.
You go.
So 20 of 8, and I'm usually there at somewhere between 5 and 6 o'clock. So you can call me. My email is mhelfand@portsmouth.ri.com.
I just added up the numbers there. That's not an 8-hour day.
No, well, that's okay.
Is it maybe because you're new and isn't so much and a little short-handed and still lots to do? Huh?
That's okay. I don't.
Well, the rest of your staff doesn't have to work those hours, I hope.
No, they are very dedicated, but they're there from 8:30 to 4:30.
Great. Well, listen, thank you very, very much for taking the time out of your obviously busy day to come here. I think Portsmouth This Week is an effort by John Klimm as our town administrator to get the word out on what we do and who's doing the work, and to actually have a little live camera conversation is always a plus, I think. So anyway, thank you very much for coming, and good luck in your tax assessing and collecting job.
Okay, thank you very much.
That's it for us today.
In 1638, a group of religious dissenters from the Boston colony landed on the shores of an Indian settlement named Pocasset. Roger Williams convinced the settlers that they should go to Rhode Island instead of New Jersey. They signed the Portsmouth Compact and officially named the settlement Portsmouth. Visit www.portsmouthri375.com for more information.